As you know, my name's Jill Swyers. I have a company, Living Foods for Health. I trained as a health educator, Hippocrates Health Educator. Gosh, it must be about 24 years ago.
Oh, sorry, Jill. Hold on a second.
I've unmuted.
Okay, good.
Okay, I just saw. You're bored already? Okay.
Yes.
And prior to that, I was in the catering business for many, many, many years. And with what's going on at the moment, I have to say, probably the best thing I did was sell it. Anyway, I had to, for those who don't know, I had to change my whole life, gosh, nearly 30 years ago. And I had various health challenges, Epstein-Barr, which is chronic fatigue, various other things. And I thought, as I had to move premises for catering, it was best to sell it and really heal myself. I decided I was going to heal it my way. And I was brought up in a way that you still had to go to school no matter how unwell you felt. And so that's how I've been. And I packed my bags, went to Portugal, did some more catering there. And gradually I thought, I'm just as exhausted, etc., etc. And then I decided at the time I had to lose weight once and for all. I was quite overweight. I've always been overweight. And so I thought this time I want to keep it off. And so I started doing food combining, not mixing carbohydrates and proteins. Now, in those days, it was what many of us may have used to eat, i.e. meat and potatoes or fish and potatoes. So mixing the two was very bad food combining, very difficult for the digestion, or very difficult to digest. So, but I did it very well, but I wasn't getting advice at the time. And I was giving up foods that I just felt weren't right. In those days, it was yeast was the problem. I had a gut feeling about wheat, but I knew nothing in those days. And so gradually I continued doing all that, but I often gave up foods without replacing. Now, for example, I didn't know 30 years ago that I was going to become vegan, but I was giving up meat at home, meat, fish, whatever, where I was living in Portugal. And then if I went out, I had vegetables and whatever, and was going on. So it actually, gradually I noticed how I was getting much calmer, not so angry, etc. And then so it took me 8 years, because the day I actually walked into Hippocrates Health Institute, I'd become vegan to the best of my ability. And so it was all one step at a time, which is how I teach now. But at the time, I'd no idea, not much in the bank, so wouldn't spend this, wouldn't do this. Oops, sorry, my phone's on. And then I still obviously wasn't getting the right balance. So when I was giving up what supposedly was protein, I wasn't replacing that. I was also very addicted to food. So I could have Sunday lunch with you, have seconds. I couldn't wait to get home because I was still hungry. And I was like that for years, but I've never been short of food in the catering business, or never been short of food. So I never understood why. But as time went on, I learned a lot. I started getting involved with aloe vera juice, learning from them. That changed my life. And no, I cannot remember the taste all those years ago, but it did change my life. And then gradually, when I started at Hippocrates, that in came what I call the superfoods, vegetables. And I do find nowadays many people think they're eating some vegetables in whatever they're eating, but they're not eating enough. And it really changed my life. I've always been brought up with them. Did I always eat them? Who knows? I can't remember. But I feel that the word superfood has confused, I think, a lot of people. But to start with, the one thing about Hippocrates Health Institute and other places that I've trained in is they were always doing plant-based foods, vegan plant-based foods, but living foods, which a lot of it was raw, healthy raw. Not all raw is healthy. I'm also known for saying just because it's vegan, vegetarian, raw, plant-based, etc., doesn't mean it's healthy. As someone said online somewhere, said, you know, she just eats bread. Well, the poor body can't cope with that. She might think it's plant-based, but it's not the way to eat. And then she wonders why the body can't cope. So I was doing that. And once, then I was fortunate to be able to work at Hippocrates. It was voluntary. And to me, voluntary means full-time. It wasn't just licking a few envelopes, getting my free meal and buzzing off. I was there all day. I was staying with friends when I was working out there. I was very fortunate. And I learned a lot. And it really helped me. Over there, many people have a lot of health challenges, but there it was diabetes, insulin, cancer, MS, you name it, it works. But of course, when you get home, it has to, an attitude, it has to, we have to work at it. Well, when I was there, I thought, oh, I'm fine. Well, actually, every year gets better and better. So, so with the foods, I started, I'm realizing in those days, it wasn't easy to get a lot of the foods over here, or a lot of the we could get vegetables in general, but there were things like wheatgrass juice. Wheatgrass wasn't always available, though we have 2 wonderful suppliers, or maybe more here. But I was in Portugal most of the time, so we didn't have anything in a way then, but other than some vegetables. But I've always worked with what's available. So if there's something missing in that country, I don't believe in having it sent out. I'll find something that works. So with whatever they were teaching us, for example, what I call a superfood juice is with fresh vegetables, fresh. Well, if we haven't got what they had, sunflower sprouts, pea green sprouts, which are complete proteins. Well, if I hadn't grown them and I hadn't anywhere to buy them from in those days, then I will, oops, something's flashing at me. That's all right. Then I'll use something else. So I started working with other vegetables to make the juice. In fact, as I've been doing this afternoon, and working with some, when we look into it now, they are very much superfoods. I mean, when you want to look, for example, if you want to look at there are too many things out there that call themselves superfoods. You know, something like goji berries to me is not a balance of superfood. It's more of a antioxidant. Delicious, yes, and I love many of those things. But to me, it's all about balance. So when I traveled, I was using something powders of Nature's Living Superfood. Well, that is, I knew the company in the States, but it's Kiki Health do it here. And if you look there, it's not just one thing. It's a whole balance of things. So it's got the protein, it's got its natural carbohydrates, it's got its calcium, potassium, you name it, it's all in there. But in a way, I mean, I prefer fresh, but in saying that, I will always have it if I'm traveling. And I always put it in the jar. I don't put it in a bag on its own in case they stop me at the airport and get suspicious. Might do them some good, but there we are. And then, and I have a list that I will be able to send you if I have your emails, and you can always send emails to me. But you know, you'll be surprised how much a balance of the superfoods, for example, you know, when you think about it, you've got kale. It's a powerhouse of high nutrition. It's part of the brassica family. this is an article I wrote actually, in my eyes it says, it is the #1 vegetable because it's full of phytochemicals, high in sulfur, contains sulforaphane, it's also got its A, C, K, beta carotene, etc., etc. It's got a whole list, and that is just your kale. And there's so much that one can do with it, not just drink it. Some people say they don't like, when people tell me they don't like something, I will make something deliberately with it. Not necessarily, well, kale crisps or kale salad, but I'll make it more so that one enjoys eating it. But, and then you've got your chards, you've got your broccolis, cauliflower, celery, that's fantastic. You've also got, sorry, it's getting a bit darker here, gosh. The weather's changed so much. Okay, superfoods. Let's have a look at this. Avocado is a superfood, but you can't just live on an avocado. You need a balance of it, not just eating avocado, preferably not out of the half. It's best to take it out, mush it, or cut it very fine, mix it with something so it's easier on the digestion. Beetroot's eaten, not necessarily juiced, as another superfood. Horseradish, I mean, these are ones you're not expecting to hear. Yes, the berries, blueberries are, but you need balance. And then you, of course, have got, you believe it or not, you've got your herbal leeks, onions, garlic, which of course can help with blood pressure lowering. It can be a natural antibiotic and hopefully ward off germs. I think many people are eating garlic at the moment. They're eating ginger at the moment, and turmeric. So, you know, we've all got to help ourselves in this situation. But we have such a range, and this country in general has so much. There's so many countries that don't. And hopefully the weather won't get too bad, and that the farmers aren't going to lose their vegetables. They just need a lot of help. But then you've got things like sesame seeds, walnuts, etc. But we can't just live on the nuts or the seeds. We need to balance it out. So if you're having your cooked meal, for example, if you were going to make yourself a vegan burger, for example, with whatever you've got in it, yes, you'll probably have vegetables in there. I mean, I've made veggie burgers and people think they're eating meat, and there's no soy in there. But you also need the vegetables separately to go with it, cooked or raw, whatever, but to help it then move through your organs, obviously digesting and then going through the liver and then continuing on through. But if the foods are all too heavy, or one's eating, a lot of people are eating a lot of junk food, tasty it might be, but we need something to help it work through the body. I mean, people have spoken to me and said they think superfoods are things like, as I said, goji berries or acai, acerola, charcoal, baobab. They're more of an antioxidant, and they're best to be added and not to have too much of that sort of thing. You want more the balance of the vegetables. I know my subject's always vegetables. You think, oh, here we go again. But having experienced so much through my life, and it's helped so many people, as I say, it's all about balance. The thing is with a lot of the greens specifically, they're oxygenated foods. So you're putting oxygen into the body. You know, breathing practices, which many people do or don't do, are very important. And I think right now, breathing practices will be very beneficial, even though many people think they won't get the virus. We just have no idea. But if we practice with our breathing practices, but then by having more of the greens, whether it's wheatgrass, which is a complete food with the juice, also the sunflower sprouts grown green, pea greens. There's a whole list of those, which, along with all the green leafy vegetables, are oxygenated foods, full of oxygen. Some more than others, but it does make a difference. Helps to feed the brain. You know, we were brought up in a way to feed the body, but we weren't necessarily brought up to feed the brain, or at least I don't think we were. So in general, we need to help ourselves a lot in that way. If you have questions, you can stop me. I'm not used to it all being so quiet. At least I'm being honest. So
I just ask if people want to put in the chat, there's a chat box.
Oh.
And I know Nishma had mentioned something, which
Okay.
was, why do some beetroots give you scratchy or itchy throat? Do you know the answer to that one?
That's a very interesting question, because I meet up with some people around here. We're only about 4 of us. We're separated, and one woman was telling me, was it her? Somebody I spoke to was having a similar problem with garlic leaves. I don't know if you know them. They're just about out of season down here. Scotland, they should be probably just coming into season. And I was just saying how I love them, and I buy them at the farmer's market. And she has the same problem with the beet, same as that. She has a very bad itchy throat, and it's very scratchy. Also has problems with the face when she eats it. And so I was going to look into that. I don't have a problem with beetroot. I eat it mainly. Why do some people? It depends. Are you drinking it or are you eating it? That would be my question. Because we don't necessarily recommend drinking too much beetroot or carrots, for that matter, because once you juice it, it's like fruit. Once you juice it or blend it, it converts to sugar into the bloodstream. Yes, in my juicing, I have a recipe with some carrots and beetroot, just because I think the minerals are excellent. But over 50% of the juice will be green. She's eating the beetroot. Well, I'm going to look into that, because I find that very interesting, especially as that's twice in 2 days.
There's another question there, which is about how much cooked versus raw food should you be eating?
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it can vary, but I'm usually over 50% raw, but that's because I drink green juices or blended ones with vegetables, which are raw. In fact, I'm probably more 75% on average. Okay, if I drink about a litre and a half a day. But that's usually what they say. But when you're not quite sure what you're doing, be careful, because some people think, oh, I've had a salad, that's enough. But the body, for example, how with all those vegetables I put into a juice for, let's say, a litre, there's no ways one could eat that throughout the day. Even if I just did 1 pint, in English terms, I drink for breakfast approximately a pint of juice. Slowly, it's 2 mugs, 2 cups, 2 glasses. But I couldn't eat all those vegetables. I'd be full. So once it's juiced, though we do need fiber, we get it other ways. But it's easier on the digestion. Often our digestion tract is not always perfect. We always think it is, but it isn't always perfect, which is why they suggest some juicing. And also I like to do a bit of juice and add that to the blender and add some other fiber to it. So along with avocado or something. And I do that sometimes for 11 o'clock. But I always say, if you can, you see, if one has raw foods, I always used to say when I started this, before your hot soup, try and eat your salad. so that the body receives the raw nutrients. Now, the reason I say that, now, if you could put your hand into your stomach inside, it's very warm in there. So if you then have your hot soup first, I know we don't all do this, but I'm just saying, if we put your hot soup in and then you eat your salad afterwards, or with a cooked meal if you've got salad on the side, try and have that first, because once you've got hot food or hot soup in there, then if you can imagine having your warm soup that's sitting there in the pot, and then you throw in some raw leaves, you'll see what happens to it. Yes, many of us do that anyway when we're making soup, but it'll automatically soften them up too quickly. So we need to be able to receive the raw nutrients if we can. And but if one could, not raw food, for example, this is another thing we have to be careful of. You know, there are various restaurants, I'm not sure what's around at the moment because one or two have gone, but raw foods, depending what it is, if it's gourmet, and I hope you understand what I mean by that, because apparently a lot of people don't. I mean that it's if you were going out for a rich meal, going out for dinner, but an expensive meal, because I used to cater all these things. And if you were going out for that meal, and when you come home or next day, you feel quite heavy. Well, yes, it's delicious, it's a treat, but you can't eat like that all the time. Now, with raw foods, I'm so glad I went to Hippocrates first. I started there. I could have gone to one or two of the schools that are out in the States now, and here now, but I could have gone out there then and gone with my chef's hat on, thinking that's all I need to learn. And yes, their food is beautiful, one or two that I've met and had their food, but it was too gourmet. I mean, one person, I said I might go to one of the schools that I think has gone now, and she said, I wouldn't be able to eat the food. It would be too rich, having got to know me with my work over there and in the States. And you know, because so many people make everything with nuts all the time. We don't need that many, and they are quite rich and quite heavy. They're not bad for you. It's just people seem to think, oh, good, I can have nuts. So they have nuts for breakfast, in their break, lunchtime. You know, they just have too many. As Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn said, on one of his, he's plant-based. He's not into raw, but he's plant-based foods and vegan foods, and a qualified doctor, and he's fantastic. And one of his things, someone asked him a question and said, I notice you don't mention nuts. And he said, no, because if I mention it, you'll only hear the first sentence and won't hear the rest. He said, you'll then have it for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and wherever you are, you've got that bag of nuts, eating them. All he says is, I would have just said, and you only need 2 walnuts, but you'll miss that bit. Instead, you'll get through 2 packets and then tell me it's too expensive. But he was, you know, I've never forgotten what he said about that. And it's on one of his videos.
Just to say, I mean, because he specializes with working with people with heart conditions and clogged arteries, he puts people on a no-fat diet, basically. Whereas as a vegan, I mean, I've learned, I don't know how many years ago, it's beneficial to have a couple of Brazil nuts every day to get selenium, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe having some cashews to get some zinc. The different nuts have got different benefits. You mentioned walnuts, which is obviously omega-3 fatty acids. So they have good properties, but don't overdo it, is the message.
Oh yes, I'm not saying they haven't got good properties.
Yeah.
But people take advantage of it only because they think it's easier. Then they don't have to worry. And also because of there's, I mean, I love listening to all those doctors, but in saying that, we've all got our own views. And there have been people who've been having problems by eating too many nuts, and they think they're getting their protein as well, which I find because of the fat in it, they're not getting as much protein as they thought. And then for some people, if they're eating too many, it can cause other problems. So no, I'm not anti-nuts. I do more seeds myself, and not so many cashews, though I do like them. But you go with the flow, which copes, which you can cope with, but don't use that as your continuous. As I say, I just see people often traveling around. They've always got a bag of nuts in their bag, on the bus, or whether, even when I've come to the talks, they've got their bag of nuts. So it's trying to make things differently. I mean, I met someone the other day who says, well, chocolate is good, cacao is good. And so that's all they worry about. Well, that's not how we live. It's a nice treat. If I had chocolate now, I'd be awake all night. But that's why I could never drink coffee. I was awake all night. But it's changing, it's changing our thoughts. I mean, for some of you, I'm probably speaking to the converted totally, but for others, people have gone vegan for different reasons. I did it for health, and now I understand a lot of the rest. And so, yes, so there we are. Any questions at the moment?
There was a question about juicing, because I think you referred to juicing, and I know that your type of juicing isn't sticking a few apples and oranges in a blender and on a juicer, because you'll be using greens and things. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
And I've got a question as well.
Okay, well, let me just say about the juicing. I don't believe, I mean, we have to eat food, okay? We have to move our mold, we have to move on everything. Juicing on its own only, we don't agree with. Juice fasting, juice feasting, whatever you call it, I don't agree with that at all. I feel we need to eat. And I don't live on juice. I like to eat food. Food addiction will be there for the rest of my life, but not in the way it used to be, because I'm more balanced now. Without the juicing, for me, I could, but like any addiction, I could go back to it quite easily. But I'm not saying with one, it says, I felt eating the whole thing was better. And in a way, I'm not disputing that, but I'm saying that I think if we have some and we drink it slowly, because I used to drink juice too fast, and I used to drink water too fast. And of course, you're not absorbing. It's about drinking it slower. But I'm not saying only juice. I'm definitely not saying that. Blended fruits, which I personally don't like. I don't like fruit in other than lemon or lime. I find fruits anywhere too sweet. But unfortunately, sadly, it might help you in the beginning. But gradually, there's no energy officially in the fruit. It's very intense sugar, and it will convert to sugar into the bloodstream and can feed health problems. And so, we've all got different views, and I've met many people who've only eaten fruit, but then I've seen a lot of the anger there. I find with the greens and the vegetables, it's much more calming.
So someone spoke a moment ago with a question. If you want to.
Oh yes, who was that? Sorry, someone had a question.
Thank you. Yes, couple of questions. You were talking about the juicing earlier, and how you would get your fibre elsewhere, because the juicing doesn't really give you the fibre. And you mentioned, did you say that you add the pulp afterwards to the blender and whiz it up, and then do you make a smoothie out of it? And also I wanted to ask about juicing greens like kale and spinach and all that stuff. I understand that you can suffer from high oxalates or something like that if you eat these kind of foods in the juice, if you have this every day. So I'm a bit worried about that, about how I can.
Okay. That's a So the juice and the oxalates, and what was the other? Sorry, at the beginning.
And what were you mentioning about the pulp or getting fibre and doing another?
Okay, sorry, I did get that.
Thank you. Oh, and when you say drink slowly, how slowly are you talking?
Oh, don't go overboard. But I used to, you know, when you rush out the door or something, you down it. Well, then I'd rather take it with me and drink it on the, well, we can't go on the trains really now, but I used to just drink it slowly as I went along. Or right now, whenever I'm on Zoom or I'm attending something, I've always now got my juice there and I drink it slowly through the whatever's happening at the time. With the pulp, I don't use all the pulp for blending because it's pretty hard. What I have done with the pulp that's in the past, and someone asked me to do it again, is with the pulp, I used to dry it in a dehydrator, or someone did it in the oven on a low heat, and I dried it. And then that's the pulp left over from the juicing. And then I ground it small amounts of time, put it through like a sieve because it's not got a lot of liquid left in it. And he loved it. He was in France and he uses it like salt. But I mean, you know, it's lost a lot, but I didn't waste it. And some people do use it in soups. I've not had success there, but what I did with, say, the pulp, for example, today, the cucumber pulp, I added garlic. I had another pulp in there. Oh, I know. Sometimes I put in my juice sprouted lentils. I germinate them. I soak them overnight. I germinate them. I make hummus with them or do different things with them. So I find that I love chewing them and having them in salads, but I actually put the pulp, I put them through the juicer today because I think it helps me absorb them better. And with the pulp of that, because the pulp is good, that is good, I then threw that into the blender. And then when I'd finished making all my juice, I then take some of the liquid and pour that in, threw in some garlic, and you can add other things. I threw in a bit of seaweed, kelp powder, make it quite tasty. Oh, and I threw in an avocado. So there's some people I think do then try and blend it all, but I've not always had success, and you would need to have a really heavy duty blender, I think. I mean, I have got a Vitamix. I was very fortunate, I got it secondhand. They were going back to America and couldn't take it with them. Different electrics. But I'm someone who doesn't waste any food, if possible. I'll use everything and anything if I can. You asked about the oxalates. Spinach is something we don't really juice very often, if at all. If I've got some left and I'm emptying the fridge and off to go somewhere, and I think, oh, I'll just juice it and drink it myself. But we don't really do that, eat that more raw. Apparently cooked spinach, which most of us, the one vegetable many people love and adore, out of all the vegetables, it's more when it's cooked, it's higher in oxalate. Oh, my brain's gone today. Oxalates, it's higher. But that is one of the ones we don't use. I mean, I've been using things like recently, what do they get? Bok choys, all those leaves. They sell at the farmers market a lot. Yes, they're in the supermarkets, I believe, but I support the London farmers markets. And fortunately, they've been open during this time. And those are the sort of leaves I use more. But your question is a good question. Anything else?
On the juicing side, there was you mentioned earlier about wheatgrass. And I don't know, are you, I mean, there's a few things there. I mean, one, how often are you taking wheatgrass juice? The question that someone else asked us, does the wheatgrass contain any gluten? Which is an interesting one as well. And where do you get wheatgrass from? I mean,
Okay.
where do you buy it from, personally?
Okay. Wheatgrass juice, you have to remember, well, wheatgrass juice, no, you do not get the gluten because you don't use the husk. You grow it, once you germinate a seed, like wheatgrass, and you would grow it to about 7 inches, you would cut the grass and then juice it. You need special juices for that, special types of juices, but once you get these special types of juices, they're for life. And it's known as a complete food. Now, depending who would need, I mean, we should drink it every day. And no, I haven't drunk it this week or last week because I haven't grown any, and I'm planning to get a delivery. And if you're having it delivered, the company I know for it here is Akenbury Sprouts. It can either be, they can cut it and send it, or they'll send you trays of it. They've got a really good site, and in fact, I think they're working harder than ever now that the way things are happening. But they're very busy. And
they also do the sunflower sprouts.
They do sunflower sprouts, pea green sprouts, and various other ones. They don't do the things like, that's another company, and that's the health food stores. But things like, which I talked about, lentils and things, they're so easy to do yourself. Or you can buy those usually in places like Planet Organic, ready grown. But I mean, I soaked some and grew some in 2 days. I mean, if I was with you in person, I'm not used to not having anything around me. And I'm always bringing stuff with me and tidbits for you to try. And so I'm sorry, I've got nothing to show you. But if you look up Akenbury Sprouts.
How do you spell that? Can you?
ACONBURY Sprouts.
Okay.
Then it will have their website, which it will confuse the issue, I think, if I give it to you. But basically, look that up, because the website actually comes up as wheatgrass-uk.com. But I just look up Akenbury and it comes up all the time. Okay. And they deliver weekdays, Tuesday to Friday, and they're open Monday to Thursday, except bank holidays. But normally it would be once out of their places, next day delivery. Always take them out of the boxes when they arrive, whether it's cut or because of the weather where it's been. I mean, today's cooler and better. But when I say out of the boxes, I mean the cardboard boxes. You can grow these yourself, but that would be a class on its own. But it does work. And they've got stuff on their site, actually, for growing as well. But I'm always offer different snippets to it. If anyone comes to my workshops again, once we're allowed to do that, then I'd be happy to do just a class on that, or we do a bit with the food, etc., etc. All depends on people's time. But I don't know when that opens up yet.
There's I don't know if that's the answer. There's a question also: if we skip meals regularly,
yes,
do they supplements make up for the missing nutrients?
No. Sorry, folks. One thing you might see, and I've been reading up this week, this will not replace a meal. Okay, it will not replace a meal, unfortunately. But there are supplements we can take. But I work with more food-based supplements, which, you know, I'm just thinking what. But no, they don't replace a meal. I mean, I've always got with me is sun chlorella, for example. And I've always got some juice with me, or if I have to, I make a powdered juice and take it with me. I've always got those things, but the trouble is when we skip meals itself, is then we're more hungry when we get home, or as you know, before I don't know if it's started again, but people, you know, the amount of people that are eating sandwiches on the trains or on the buses, or they've already started their takeaway on the bus. You know, the smells get me down at times, but you know, that's the way it is. But then I can understand if they're going through food addiction like I was, or you know, I'm trying to be very careful when I'm on the bus not to eat.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Oh,
How good are those superfood powders?
The powders.
Yeah, I mean, like you get wheatgrass powder, you get all acai berry powders. How good are they?
Well, I'm a big fan of a company, Kiki Health,
Okay.
and they're based in Norfolk, but their stuff's everywhere, or you just go online and look them up. Kiki Health, I think it's .co.uk. I should know it by now. Even though I got to know them originally because they brought in products that I've been praying would come to England, and we're going back 20 years. Then I did do a bit of work with them because I just love their products. I don't work with them now, but I still believe in their products. And I do think they've got a huge variety. They've got a good wheatgrass, and their Nature's Living Superfood, the one I mentioned earlier, that one has a complete balance and has the grasses in it.
Right.
But what's the other one? E3 Live is another one I like very much. They have some very good products. And no, I don't get commission.
I don't know where it came from, but literally, I mean, for the last however many years, I've been using the Kiki Superfoods as well. I don't know who recommended it or where it's come from, but I mean, my diet is probably not as healthy as yours, Jill. It's like, I think, well, I'm doing something a little bit healthy first thing in the morning by having this powdered mixture of these greens and things. So, and it tastes a lot better than, in my mind, it tastes a lot better than some of these other, I don't know, powdered things. So I get off Amazon a big jar and have a spoonful in water. But I'm sure there's other things out there that are similar. But yes, I think it's a good company.
No, I think they're very good. I mean, I remember saying to him, the owner, one time, how does he do it? He gets just about all his products. And I said this a few years ago. I don't know how he finds them. You know, if I come in and say, how about buying that? No, it's not going to listen. He does his own research. And they're doing very well, I would imagine. I mean, his products are everywhere. They're in a few countries now. So anyway, yes, that powder I've been using for years. So, and his wheatgrass is on its own is good, but the Nature's Living Superfood has got grasses in there. It's got three grasses. It's got vegetables, sprouts, as in sunflower pea, that sort of thing. Only because I happen to have met the guy that made that originally, and the company he had, which was in the States. And that guy, in those days, he was very, very healthy. What was that?
I don't know. We've got the question about, what do you think of intermittent fasting? For example, doing a water fast on Monday and Thursday, or reducing your food, I guess, is another option of reducing food on some days and eating more on other days. I don't know if you have any thoughts, because I think Hippocrates use fasting as a way of healing?
Juice fasting?
No, do they? I don't know. They do juice fasting. Do they do water fasting, or is it just juice fasting?
I think if you're doing water fasting, let me put it this way. Hippocrates would do a juice fast once a day, 1 day a week. Okay? So you choose your own day. If you're there, it's always a Wednesday, because people are, they arrive on a Sunday, stay for 3 weeks, but they leave on a Saturday. So you need to at least have had some nutrients put into the body. And so by Wednesday, they'll have juice, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's 4 times a day. And then in the evening, they have a sort of like a blended soup, cold, I mean raw, with the juice along with many other things added to it, including avocado. And that's to help break the fast for the next day. And but they don't do water fasting. Now, water fasting, if you're going to do, I don't think you should do too often. You're better actually just giving the body a rest with some juices, as in what I'm teaching, the green. I think when you're water fasting, you know, I've been to a place in California, True North, a few years ago, mainly for the experience. And they do water fasting, but it's guided water fasting. They do not leave the property. They're not allowed to leave the property. They're given minerals, etc., to help balance, and they're checked every day. I didn't do that. I wanted juice because I wasn't making it. And it was made for you, even bought it to you. And I said, I'm quite capable of walking those few feet. But that, for me, it made a big difference that I wasn't even having to, you know, I was having a break. And obviously I went there to learn. But I can't see why you would want to fast twice a week. You know, have it one day when you're not working, if you must, but I think you do need to take some various minerals, and definitely not working. Because the whole point, if you're doing a fast, is the body has to rest. And when we're busy and got our minds on whatever we're planning to do or work that day, it doesn't really help. So I hope that answered the question.
If anybody wants to ask a question, you can either unmute yourself temporarily or you can put it in the chat box.
I'm just looking back at this question with the gluten and the wheatgrass. And by the way, to that person, it wasn't a stupid question. But gluten, yes, can cause problems. But another problems with swelling of ankles, etc., can be the fact that you're not drinking enough water. And I don't know what exercise or just walking, but often one needs to drink water because the body is quite hydrated, dehydrated. And we need to, we do need more water as well. Gluten isn't always bad, but the wheat gluten at the moment has been a problem, and we don't know where it's come from. I mean, we do need to look at many of our foods, look at organic or farmers market, organic without the certificate. That's why I support them. Biological, depending which country you're in, that's the word they use. But that's quite important. But for the swollen ankles, I would consider looking at how much water, or everybody should be looking at water and how much water they're drinking every day. That is quite necessary. And with some water, you know, add a bit of lemon as well. Freshly squeezed lemon juice. I think something else came up.
How do you remain satiated?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Hold on a second. There's one here. How do you remain satiated on a whole food plant-based diet?
Yes, I think we did a yoga course together. Can't see her face. How do you remain satiated on a whole foods plant-based diet? Meaning,
she's not obviously feeling full up. She's feeling that still that needs more food.
Well, not. Where does the time go? Thank you for being there. The thing is, because I don't know what you're eating at the moment, I can't really tell you, other than I find when I have my juicing, or it depends how long you've been doing that diet, lifestyle, is I find I don't want so much food anymore. Probably a good thing. But I do find that I'm just thinking, no, because I do have my juice, I think that helps me a lot. But just remember, that's only once or twice a day that I do it. And then I eat my meals. And actually, believe it or not, I know everyone's been having problems or many have during this time, at the moment being home, and, you know, all these jokes about going to the fridge, or the clothes are losing weight in the cupboard, is I'm not so hungry. You know, I have the psychological thing. You put a key in the door. Oh, I need to eat. Well, I don't know if there's that. But I'm not hungry at all so much, and I still have to eat. So it could be you're not eating enough, or you might be eating too much what I call the carbohydrate side. Not enough of the vegetables to go with it. We can always talk another time if you like.
There's a few questions,
Okay.
quick and fast. There's somebody who was speaking a moment ago. I don't know if I was Ranjan or somebody.
Yeah, I have a question, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on live fermented food like kimchi, apple cider vinegar, all this stuff?
Very good. Kimchi is excellent. I mean, often sauerkraut, but preferably look or make them, it's without the sugar.
Yeah, I'm these days taking advantage of lockdown and making my own kimchi, my own apple cider vinegar at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not eating enough of it. I did look in my cupboard today. It's there. It's called use it. It's like people have juices, but they don't use it. You know, bring it out of the box. Kimchi is excellent. Really good for the digestion. I mean, when you look at countries like, well, I know for Lithuania, because in the winter their garages are full of all the stuff they've made. And, you know, look at a lot of those countries, on that side, they're pretty healthy. And I think we need to eat more. And they're at the farmers markets, or at least my local one. So yes, that's excellent. Cooking, microwave, oven, healthy. Sorry, folks, microwave is not a good idea.
You're not a fan then, Jill?
Sorry?
You're not a fan?
Definitely not. I do not have one. I know. Do you know, years ago, I never wanted one, and my mother kept saying I had to get one. I used it about twice, and then I left it for people who rented rooms here. And but then I don't have it now. I gave it away because I don't use it. It's not, if you think about it, the rays, I'm not very good at scientific talk, but the rays or whatever goes into it's not a healthy way. I know we all want to put it in quickly, but and I have it cooked quickly, but no, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but microwave oven is not healthy. It's just like a plane. I mean, aeroplanes are very bad for us. I do appreciate them, right? But they're not healthy for flying. And the microwave is very similar. Okay? It's very intense.
I think maybe
I use mine almost every day.
I'm sure everybody does. I'm not disputing that.
Very unhealthy.
But there are people who can talk about it. But and yes, there are times when I think, oh, just something quick. But no, I wouldn't get another one. I've heard too many sad stories. But, you know, I'm not there to tell you to stop. I'm just suggesting, you know, but very good question.
Martin asked made a comment.
Yes, I'm lucky. Oh, yes. I sprinkle a little spirulina and maca powder on my porridge, ooh, yum, with the belief it is doing me some good. What do you think? And can you recommend anything else that could be added? Well, no, what you're doing there, I think, is fine. The one thing that, because often I've said when people start on the program and they want their breakfast, I might recommend porridge, but what I do recommend, which you probably won't like, is the oats, the jumbo oats or whatever the ones you're using, are best soaked overnight. So they absorb the water, they've usually absorbed all the water, but they swell in the bowl, not in, they don't really swell when you cook. They bind together, but then they start swelling in your stomach. So, and for some people who've, I've told that, they don't even cook them now because they're already cooked anyway. But if you, there was someone here who used to stay here, and so she used to soak them, and then she put whatever she wanted on the top, like you, along with all other extras she added to it, and never cooked it, and took it with her to work. But no, I think what you're adding is fine.
I think that was the last question. I'm going to say sort of a wind up, finish now, Jill.
Okay. Oh,
do you want to share your? You said that if people can email you for more information.
Yes.
Your email address.
Do you want me to write it there, or shall I call it out?
We could type it down there if you've got access to the chat box, or you want to say it, then people, if they're watching this, can see it, can hear it.
Well, someone's left. Oh, I don't know how to clear that now to do it to everyone. Someone has. Hold on. Let me. Oops. Oh, yes, you did put something up, but I want to clear that. Oh. Sorry.
Do you want me to tell me what it is? I'll type it in here.
Okay. My direct email is, it's like my website, Jill Swyers, JILLSWYERS @gmail.com. And if people
added to your mailing list to get more information.
Yes, and I also can't promise when. I wanted to send information to you. I've got it here, and I found where I had the article. I put it in some years ago, but my assistant, who's an office I use in Portugal, they couldn't find it today, but I think it's come under another name. So I'm planning to send it to you, but I can't promise when.
Okay.
Okay.
It was a big thank you. I don't know if I can hold on. I'll mute everybody. Hold on, unmute themselves. I don't know if I can unmute everybody. But just say a big thank you on behalf of everybody for participating and sharing all that information. I hope we've all learned something from what you've said. And yeah, please do contact and getting in touch with Jill. She can give you more information, send you that information sheet out as well. So big thank you. And,
thank you. Thanks very much.
See you soon. I'm going to end.